of House Budget Review Subcommittee on Personnel, Public Retirement, and Finance. And Madam Secretary, please call roll. We might be a little thin. We have a couple members that are over in banking and insurance that are going to try to make it over here if they can. So, Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Right. Representative Hancock. Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Lockett. Representative Bowling. Representative Bray. Representative Petrie. Representative Chair Thomas.
Present. All right. Let's see. So we can't approve minutes, can we? Or, okay, we'll just leave them for future meetings anyway, since I think, David, you were here in the last meeting also, so we appreciate you coming back. And in this weather, come on, take a seat. And while y'all are doing so, I'm going to introduce my intern who's helping me out. This is Declan Farmer. He is helping me out this semester, a student of UK, and we found we both have some California ties way back out in that foreign country out there. So, all righty, y'all. I know David knows the routine there, and Carrie, if so, just state your name for the record and make sure that bright green button's on. And the floor is yours.
Well, I'll start us out. I'm David Carter. I'm the Deputy Chief Information Officer with the Commonwealth Office of Technology.
Hi, I'm Carrie Welch. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Architecture and Governance with the Commonwealth Office of Technology.
Don't worry. Kevin's going for a hearing test after this. So.
I'm going to get my hearing tested after this.
Very good.
We could walk right through that door, Kevin. I'm sorry. The floor is y'all's.
Well, again, we'd like to thank the committee members for your time. We know you're busy folks, and we appreciate the invitation to talk with you about the modernization of legacy IT systems in the Commonwealth, focusing specifically on the legacy modernization funds. I'm going to start us off today just with a little bit of foundation, specifically starting out with, kind of what defines a legacy system. The common understanding is it's an old system that's no longer supported, but actually the definition of a legacy system encompasses other things. It encompasses supportability, adaptability, sustainability. And KRS 7A180 really contains a detailed definition of what a legacy system is. And that's reflected here on this slide. So in the first two blocks on the top, that really kind of fits into that traditional thought of what a legacy system is. Software that's maybe a little long in the tooth, that's no longer supported by a vendor or the author of the software. Or maybe it's software that depends on things that are no longer supported. An example would be an application that's dependent on an operating system that's no longer supported by the operating system vendor. So those are your more traditional legacy definitions. Then we get into the next two blocks, going down to the end of the first row and then starting the second row, where we really start talking about adaptability. Programs live for a reasonable lifetime, and during that lifetime, business evolves, business needs change, and a solution that met the standard of what the business needed in the very beginning maybe doesn't meet it now because business processes have changed, business needs have changed, needs of our citizens have changed. So, this legacy system can be one that just no longer works for the modern workforce because it doesn't do what they want it to do. That could also be driven by state and federal regulatory requirements. Those evolve over time. So what maybe checked all the boxes initially doesn't quite do that now. So we have to look at that as a legacy system as well that doesn't meet the business need or regulatory compliance. And then the last two blocks are really more about that sustainability aspect. So things that maybe were developed 20 years ago, retirements happen, people move on to other things. You can do knowledge transfer about basic how the application functions, but sometimes applications involve millions of lines of code. you can't really transition that kind of knowledge over to somebody else very easily. So what we end up with there is a bit of a knowledge vacuum of how that application works at an intimate level, at a very detailed level. Makes it difficult to support that application going forward and hard to sustain that support going forward. And then the last block there really kind of feeds on the first one in that nobody's really training for some of these older languages. So not only do we have a gap there where we're losing some of that institutional knowledge about that application or that solution, nobody's training to replace that knowledge. So that leaves us in a little bit of a quandary as these things get a little old, a little antiquated, and need to move to a more modern solution. So we have the capital projects for those larger projects, those higher dollar projects that are more strategic in nature, that maybe span multiple years, that are a little more intense. The legacy modernization funds are there for those smaller projects that fall under that threshold. The things that are a little more tactical, maybe the issue arose in between budget cycles, they're below that planning and cost aspect that would move it to a capital project. So these funds are pretty valuable for helping us do that, but we got to go through a process to really determine if the solution qualifies and is it truly a legacy system. So we've got a playbook, which is basically a process that we go through in partnership with agencies to understand that a little better. Step one is kind of the easier step. That's the comparing it against the definitions that we just talked about to determine if they qualify as a legacy system. We also take into account business risk, business impact, that kind of thing, to determine the criticality of that legacy system. And then step two is where we get a little more in depth, where we start digging into taking the deep dive into what would it take to modernize this system. We start asking the questions like, should we upgrade this system? Is that the right path for this? Should we look at a different solution? We look across the state to see if there are other agencies with similar needs or similar processes. Can we leverage something that's already in place? Maybe achieve some economies of scale by grouping use cases together. It may be something that's a little more unique to state government. We can use our partnerships and relationships built through organizations like the National Association of State CIOs and the National Association of State Technology Directors to reach out to other states to see how they solve this problem. So we've got resources at our disposal. We also have capability within the state to develop applications. We have expertise. We have modern development platforms. We look at maybe the build or buy aspect of it. Do we build a solution to solve this problem? Or is this a case it's better not to reinvent the wheel? There's already commercial product out there that can do this in a responsible, fiscally responsible manner, and go that route. Which is the best way to approach this? So a lot of analysis goes into the decision point of what's the path forward. And then once we have that path forward, we look at the available funding, we look at what the costs are for that, and then start looking at options such as the legacy modernization funds to help agencies achieve some of those goals. The value of the legacy modernization funds is pretty evident when you talk about the definition of legacy, the problems that it can create. This is a resource for the executive branch cabinets and agencies to really kind of upgrade some of those outdated, unsupported systems and get them into a more compliant state, or move to a totally separate modern solution that is better suited for their business needs. It can help get rid of some of these manual, more inefficient processes, moving more to a digital world where things can be more efficient, help deliver services better to our citizens. All of that combined gives us the ability to maybe give some enhanced features and functionalities to our citizens and others that are trying to do business with the Commonwealth. And it eliminates some of those risks, those operational, those security, those compliance risks that come from legacy systems. It also gives us the ability to maybe get systems in place that function better for the business, that achieve their goals, their needs much better than what they have today, and helps kind of find some of those efficiencies that technology can bring to the table. But in order for technology to do that, it has to continue to evolve to meet the business needs and to meet the regulatory requirements and so forth. So I know I went through that rather quickly, but fortunately I have Carrie Welch here with me that can pick it up from here, whose leadership around this is a great example of the strength of COT, and I'll turn it over to her at this point.
Twice a year, COT submits a report to the, I had to write this one down, Interjoint Committee on Appropriations and Revenue on the progress made with the legacy modernization funded projects. We submitted the last report December of 2025. To date, there have been 30 projects funded. We have completed 18 of those projects, and we continue to make progress on the remaining, while in parallel work with our state agencies to continue to identify efficiencies, modernization needs, and look for funding, either utilizing these funds or their own cabinet funds or other, creative ways we can find to fund to replace or modernize or upgrade their legacy systems. And just want to highlight some of the success that we have achieved utilizing the legacy funds. We've been able to modernize security cameras throughout several state agencies and buildings and cabinets. We have been able to replace failing unsupported systems. We've been able to migrate documents from legacy platforms to the Commonwealth's Enterprise Content Management Platform. We have been able to restore vendor support with a vendor that we had canceled a contract with, and was able to reestablish that support, complete upgrades, and become in compliance with different state and federal regulations. We've launched a digital policy acknowledgement portal that replaces paper signatures for over 2,000 employees in a cabinet every year. We also funded the state police to replace their dispatch system, and we have done several projects where we have digitized paper records. We have a scanning vendor. We have used those to come in and scan paper documents and then put those in an enterprise content management system for fast indexing and retrieval and searching of those documents. So state employees can respond to open records requests, find things quicker, and be able to access data quicker. And it also secures the data digitally. I mean, we've had several disasters across the Commonwealth to know, between the flooding here at our own courthouse, that, having these records digitized is a huge win for the Commonwealth. So with that concludes David and my presentation. We are ready for any questions you might have.
Awesome. Well, we do have a few questions. Representative Jackson.
David, you know how this works. If you don't know the answers, if you could just get those for the committee, if you would.
Yes, sir.
What specific systems are expected to need modernization in the next biennium? Can you provide the committee with a system-by-system or dollar-by-dollar explanation of how the $10 million will be spent and what asset or functionality will result from each portion?
I can't speak to that directly. Consolidation was a consolidation of infrastructure. Applications largely remain with the agencies, but we partner closely with our agencies as they identify those needs. And the emergence of legacy systems is something that can occur pretty rapidly. We don't always get a lot of runway from our vendors when things are going to be falling out of support. Sometimes we do. The larger solutions, yes, we do. Smaller solutions, the more point solutions that agencies use, sometimes we don't get a lot of runway on those. So this is really kind of the parachute that we keep out there available for the agencies to handle those emerging issues, as well as some of those things that they're more aware of. But again, that would be more of a question for some of the agencies that own the applications, and we provide kind of the partnership support to help them achieve resolving the issue.
Okay. You want to do one more?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give us a roundabout percentage of the amount of funds that go to software, hardware, vendor contracts, and internal staff timing? What portion of this request is truly capitalized versus operating or maintenance expenses?
I don't believe we have that breakdown for you with us today, but that is something that we could certainly try to put together for you.
Okay.
But we do follow the model of capital IT projects where ongoing costs aren't funded from the legacy modernization pool. These are truly development costs, purchasing that hardware for the very first time, and things like that. So, but we do have a breakdown of those costs, and we can provide those to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, some of this was a little vague on this, and that's why we're trying to dig a little bit deeper. I'll ask one, and then never mind. We got our vice chair Bowling here, so let him ask a question or two.
Sure. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What objective criteria determine that a system is no longer functional or insufficient or needs replacement? How do you all go about determining that?
Let me go back a few slides. That's kind of what we covered here in our playbook. The analysis process is really...
That's what I get for being late. I missed the first 2 or 3 slides. So.
The analysis project really kind of in the step 2 here is where we really kind of interrogate the problem. We ask some of those critical questions. Obviously we've already identified it as a legacy system that's no longer under support by the vendor, or it meets one of the other criteria in the definition of what a legacy solution is based on KRS 78180. So when we get to that analysis stage, that's when we start asking the questions about, is this something that is eligible to be upgraded? And if so, is that the appropriate path for us to take with this solution? We look across the agencies to see if other agencies have similar type problems, and we can consolidate efforts under a common solution, maybe achieve some economies of scale, or combine efforts to help reduce costs. It may be something that is very specific to state government, and if so, we may leverage our relationships with other states to inquire how they may have approached the problem. We also have development resources in the state that we will look at internally to see, do we have the resources to develop this solution, or do we not reinvent the wheel and look at a commercial solution that's already there that will do it in a really effective manner? So we weigh a lot of those pros and cons to determine what direction's the best approach for the solution before we start looking at available funding and that kind of thing.
Can I get one more?
Yes, sir.
And so just like looking at this more holistically, and we see it just from the budget side, that's the only place I'm speaking from right now. But like when we get the different budget units, whether it's economic development or Medicaid or whatever it might be, there are additional requests for upgrades of IT and infrastructure within those. So is that you all determining that they need those, or is it, are you all working in conjunction with the cabinets to identify those programs and give them those numbers? Because I understand like the funding for the project we're talking about today, it's like a $10 million fund that is spread out throughout state government in various ways. But then when we look at like individual budget units, there's a lot of requests for like upgrades of technology for this function or that function, or enhance it this way or add this function. And it just seems like there's no like, there's no like, this is our game plan, this is how we're trying to address it across the entire, executive branch state government. And so maybe you can speak to that. I don't know.
Yeah, we have strong partnership with our agencies. We work directly with our agencies on IT initiatives. We are part of what's called the strategic purchase request process, where we have review of IT purchases across the state. We are generally involved in the development and scoring and technical advisory capacity for the request for proposals that go out for IT solutions. We're involved throughout that process of determining what's needed from an IT perspective.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Chairman Luck, or?
So you were talking about upgrades to systems, to the legacy IT system. We've covered in other committees as well. So when you say upgrade, are you talking about like replacing that equipment? Are you talking about enhancing it? Are you talking about just kind of fixing it? And how much would be, what kind of cost is involved?
That's a great question, and it's pretty variable. Upgrade to IT folks has a very specific meaning. It's taking something in an in-place upgrade, you bring it up to a more current version. That's not always the best solution, and it's not always a available solution, honestly. We are seeing a trend in the industry of consolidation of products. So a vendor may no longer support a product because they pulled that functionality into a larger suite of products, grouping like type solutions into a common platform. So there's cases where upgrade's not an option because that solution by itself is no longer available, and it's not beneficial for us to buy into the larger suite that gets pulled into that larger suite that's not economically viable for us to jump into because we're not going to consume all of those other pieces of that suite. So upgrade is not always an option, but it doesn't generally mean replace. For us, upgrade means moving to the next version. When we say replace, that's when we are actually switching to a different solution or a different system.
All righty. I have just a couple more. So how was the $5 million in each fiscal year arrived at the capital project ask if the projects really aren't determined yet? So how'd y'all come up with the $5 million ask for each year?
5 million seems to be a good number to meet all of the goals, just from previous years that we've requested and received these funds. We hover between around 4 and 5 million a year to do, multiple projects.
Okay, so that would lead me to, that was a good follow-up for, if we approved less than the 10 million, can you handle that? Would you absorb it, just maybe not go as far on certain systems? If we could not come up with the full 10 million?
I think so. I believe agencies, do have some IT built into their budgets to offset some of the costs, and that's, sometimes we get into a situation where the agency has some funding, but not enough to complete a project. So we can use the legacy modernization funds to kind of offset those costs and get this platform, this system, this application upgraded to where it needs to be.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any other members? We're good? While we got a quorum, we're going to thank you all so much, but we're going to go ahead and see if we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
We got to get those under the way while we snagged a couple members here. Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate it. As of now, David, I don't think we'll see you next week, but if something comes up, we're glad to have both of y'all in and stay safe and warm out there. So if there's nothing else, Erica, good to see you. You good? I didn't see you sneak in there. All right. Thanks for coming. And if nothing else, we stand adjourned.
Thank you all.
5 people here. We got a big crowd. Turned out to be a big crowd.
Adam here too.
To what do we owe the honor of you being here, Adam?
That's going to cost already.